Most people who call themselves free are not free at all. They wake up when an alarm commands, rush because a calendar demands, swallow words out of fear of judgment, and lie awake at night replaying the opinions of people they do not even respect. No chains on their wrists, no master at their back, and yet inside they live like prisoners. This is where the story of Epictetus becomes uncomfortable, because he was, in fact, a slave, born into bondage, owned by another man, his body damaged, his future supposedly decided for him. And yet, by the end of his life, he would become one of history's great teachers of freedom. In the next few minutes, we will walk through how a man with no control over his body discovered absolute control over his soul, and how his journey from slavery to inner freedom can become a map for your own fears, failures, and restlessness today. The first hard truth Epictetus forces on us is this: you can lose almost everything outside you and still not lose yourself. But most of us do the opposite. We bargain away our peace over emails, social media comments, bank balances, and predictions about a future we cannot command. We trade our inner life for illusions of outer security. Epictetus began life with almost none of those illusions available to him, and that is exactly what made him dangerous to the false comforts his society believed in. Imagine him as a young slave in the house of Epictetus, a powerful freedman of Emperor Nero. The boy's leg is crippled, some sources say through deliberate cruelty. He limps through corridors of power he does not control, serving meals at banquets where lives and empires are discussed as casually as wine. He owns nothing. He decides nothing. Yet somewhere in that household he hears of a Stoic philosopher named Musonius Rufus, and something in him responds. While others chase favor and status, the slave goes to listen. Here comes the first reversal. Most of us think freedom comes after power, after money, after we finally get out of whatever situation traps us. Epictetus's life says the opposite. Sitting in a crowded room as a slave, listening to words about virtue and reason, he begins to discover a domain no master can enter. He realizes that while his body may be ordered about, there is a small, silent court within him that remains his alone. The power to choose what he believes, how he judges, and how he responds. We like to call that an inspiring idea, but Epictetus called it a discipline. He trained it day by day. When insulted, he observed his own reaction. When pain flared in his damaged leg, he watched the story his mind tried to tell. This is unbearable. This is unfair. Instead of agreeing blindly, he asked a different question. What exactly is being attacked here? My body, my reputation, my plans, or my character? Can anyone force me to be dishonest, cowardly, or unjust without my consent? This sounds abstract until you translate it into a modern scene. A manager at work humiliates you in front of others. Your first reaction is heat in the face, the urge to defend, then hours of replaying the scene in your head. In that moment, where is the real slavery? It is not in your job title. It is in the unseen chain between your sense of worth and this other person's opinion. Epictetus would invite you to notice the link, hold it in your mental hands, and quietly say, they touched my reputation, but did they touch my integrity? They disturbed my plans, but did they break my capacity to respond with courage and clarity? The next hard truth is this: your emotions often serve as proof, not that reality is cruel, but that your expectations were unwise. Pain, he would say, is not always a verdict on your life. Sometimes it is feedback on your beliefs. We tell ourselves, I must be loved by everyone I value. My efforts must be rewarded. My body must remain young and strong. Life must recognize my goodness. When reality refuses, we call it injustice. Epictetus called it a misunderstanding of what is and is not under our control. Here we meet the core of his teaching. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Our opinions, impulses, desires, and aversions, these are ours. Our body, possessions, reputation, and office, these may be taken, damaged, or denied at any time. The inner field is freedom's territory. the outer field is fortunes. Confuse the two, and you will live in permanent anxiety, even if you wear a crown. Now notice the reversal. In a world obsessed with controlling more data, more image, more outcomes, Epictetus invites you to control less, but more deeply. He does not offer techniques to conquer every situation. He offers a way to stop being conquered by every situation. The goal is not to bend the world to your will, but to free your will from the world's turbulence. If these ideas resonate with you, take a moment, while you are still listening, to subscribe to this channel and leave a thoughtful comment about where you most feel unfree in your daily life. Your reflections help shape the conversations we build together here, quietly, thoughtfully, one mind at a time. In the second movement of Epictetus's story, the outward conditions finally change, but not in the way fairy tales usually promise. Years later, Emperor Domitian expels philosophers from Rome. Epictetus, now a teacher, is forced into exile. He travels to Nicopolis in Greece, with little more than his character and his teaching. From exile, he founds a school. Students from across the empire come to sit with a man who owns almost nothing, has no political power, and yet speaks as if standing on solid ground in a collapsing world. This is a crucial reversal. Exile becomes influence. What looks like loss from the outside becomes liberation from the inside. Stripped of Rome's center, Epictetus stands closer to what is central in himself. He no longer lives in the shadow of emperors, but under the open sky of first principles. What is a good life? What does it mean to be free? What can no one take from you? He does not promise his students comfort. He tells them instead that most of their suffering comes from trying to escape what cannot be escaped: pain, loss, and death. You are mortals, he reminds them. You will lose what you love. You will fail at times. Your body will weaken. To modern ears, this sounds harsh, even cold. But look at your own life. How much of your anxiety is an attempt to negotiate a secret exception for yourself? A belief that if you worry enough, achieve enough, or fear enough, you might be spared the common human condition. The deeper reflection he offers is this: the point is not to avoid all pain, but to become a person who knows what to do with pain, to know how to suffer without collapsing into self-hatred or blaming the world, to know how to meet fear not as an enemy to destroy, but as a signal to clarify what truly matters. To know how to fail without deciding that you are a failure. Imagine yourself again in a modern situation. A business you built with care is failing, or a relationship you trusted is unraveling. You feel the familiar storm of thoughts. This should not be happening. I cannot bear this. My life is ruined. Epictetus would not ask you to pretend it does not hurt. He would ask you to ask a different question. What kind of person do I choose to be in the presence of this loss? What strengths does this demand from me that comfort never could? Here is another shift. We commonly think meaning comes from what we achieve. Epictetus suggests that meaning also comes, and perhaps more deeply, from how we endure. Achievements end. Bodies decay. Names on buildings are forgotten. But the way you met your fears, handled your responsibilities, practiced honesty when lying would have been easier, and kept your dignity when you were not treated with dignity, these become the shape of your soul. This is why he could say that a chained body may house a freer spirit than a palace. If your peace depends on perfect circumstances, your peace is always at risk. If your peace depends on the alignment of your will with reason, reality, and virtue, then even in grief, you are not shattered. You are being refined. In our time, anxiety is often treated as a technical malfunction, something to be medicated, optimized, or distracted away. Epictetus would look at our restless scrolling, our dependence on external validation, our paralysis in the face of uncertainty, and call it by an older name, forgetting what is truly in our power. He would not shame us for it. He would invite us to practice a different way of seeing. In the quiet moments before sleep, Instead of inventorying everything that might go wrong tomorrow, you might ask, what did I actually control today? My decision to speak or remain silent, my choice to act or delay, my willingness to be honest or to pretend. Then you might ask, what did I not control, no matter how much I worried? Other people's thoughts, accidents, the market, the weather, the past. Over time, this simple separation becomes an act of inner citizenship. You learn the borders of your own republic. Slowly, something changes. You begin to feel less like a slave to every notification, every opinion, every fear about the next decade. You start to experience in small but unmistakable ways the kind of freedom Epictetus discovered in bondage. The freedom of consenting to reality where you must, and resisting only where it is noble and possible to resist. Epictetus died, as all humans do. His body, already wounded early in life, returned to the silence from which it came. But the posture he taught, the straightness of an inner spine that no whip could bend, remains available to anyone willing to practice it. You do not need to be born a slave to understand him. You only need to be honest about the invisible masters you still obey. As you leave this story and return to your own, the question is not whether you are free on paper, under law, or in the eyes of others. The question that will echo, if you let it, is simpler and more demanding. In this moment, with this thought, this fear, this desire, am I choosing like a slave or like someone who remembers that their mind was never meant to bow?